Martin Heidegger, one of the greatest and most influential philosophers of the 20th century, is an ontologist. His most famous book is Being and Time. He's concerned with the philosophies of ipsum esse subsistens, the sheer act of being itself, and by his time the philosophical project had largely abandoned that pursuit. Heidegger has three kinds of being which are relevant. Firstly, lowercase b being. That shoe is, that guitar is, all of the individual beings. Secondly, capital B being, a sort of the identity which relates inclusion in reality. What does it mean to be actually must be related in some fundamental way to the structure of being itself, that this property distributes over all individual lowercase b beings. And the third as a Dasein, which will translate roughly as human being, but has no direct analog in English. It's what it means to be human: fear, anxiety, dread, and love, meaning, all of these things wrapped together in a discrete sense of conscious experience, and perhaps most importantly, an experiencer. It's something which can't necessarily be conceptually formulated, but only experienced in our lives. It's human life, it's human being. And so he's trying to get back to the pre-Socratics, the Greeks, those guys. He calls it a respectful naivete, where we're asking fundamental questions about capital B being. But there's an inherent problem with this, which is that we are, I think, therefore I am. I cannot escape being. I'm embedded within it. And I can't view it from a bird's eye view, thusly. I can't view it from an objective lens. Objectivity itself is a construct of being. It's another way to term existence. So Michael Sugar says that it's like trying to bite your own teeth. How can you examine being from within it? And so, but nevertheless, we must try, because it's a noble and lofty pursuit. When we went beyond these fundamental questions in the Western intellectual tradition, Heidegger reckons that we're actually taking a step backwards. We're bracking ourselves in our understanding of the world and saying that, and by saying that being, capital B being, is impenetrable, is to miss the point. Heidegger kind of reckons that the inroad to understanding capital B being is through the understanding of Dasein, is through understanding human being. So Michael Sugar relates Heidegger's search for capital B being to the story of the young rich man in the Gospels, who Jesus tells to sell all that he has, give it to the poor, take up his cross and follow him. Heidegger is saying that you sell all your lowercase b beings, you get rid of your attachment to the material world and every particular thing, and instead focus on being itself. That is where you make contact with the transcendent. And so what is his work actually about, though? His magnum opus, Being and Time, has a number of great ideas, but the idea fundamentally is encapsulated in this quote I love from Jordan Peterson. I keep a quotes list that if you honestly and truthfully confront the tragic limitations of your life, you will discover the truth of the implicit order, the logos which stands behind reality, and that will redeem you. What Heidegger says is that you must earn your freedom. You have to earn your freedom by confronting Dasein, by confronting human existence. Chris Langan says society is no longer encouraging people to participate in their own destinies. Soren Kierkegaard wanted his tombstone to say his date of birth, his date of death, and below that he wanted to say that individual. In order to earn the right to be called an individual, you need to confront being, confront Dasein on your own, and with that you become an individual, a unique instance of being, and that's the adventure of your life. So in a sense, capital B being is experienced at the terminus of this process. There are three aspects of Dasein which need to be confronted. Firstly, facticity. We did not, to our knowledge, ask to be here. I think that we did choose to incarnate when we were non-terminal entities, but that's not strictly relevant to Heidegger's thought. Regardless, we have no memory of the conscious choice to exist in this plane of existence, where space and time and objects and other people and, we have to live in a society, etc. We were thrown. We have to deal with that. And so second, existentiality. Existence is fundamentally absurd, but this becomes all the worse when you don't try to make meaning and purpose out of it and become nihilistic and desperate. There is an infinite tapestry of potential embedded in any future, and where we are a conscious agents, we can order the factitious reality towards some transcendental good, perhaps towards the ordering good of being itself, and that's where we make contact with the transcendent. And third, fallenness. Human existence is already fundamentally ridiculous in Heidegger's view in some real sense. He's an existentialist. And so But it's made all the worse, or from all of the arbitrary societal constructs, expectations, the modes we live by, the herd mentality. We become mere numbers in the crowd and live inauthentic lives. So what is the proper response to conditions? What is the proper response to Dasein, to human existence? Jordan Peterson says this very succinctly. He says, get the hell up, get your act together, adopt some responsibility, put your life together, develop a vision, unfold all those manifold possibilities that lurk within, be a force for good in the world, and that will be the adventure of your life. We must sell all else and follow being, follow capital B being. When we embrace being, we can say, I am. When we abandon being, we're left with the pathetic question of, who am I? And this is the source of quite a bit, I think, of identity politics in the present political moment. It's that we have this obsession with identity and group identity because we've lost who we are. We can't make contact with being, with the transcendent. And so this is how you earn the right to be called an individual, and make contact with that ipse esse subsistence. Again, the sheer act of being itself. It's something which can't be conceptually formulated, but only experienced. And so it's the ontic ground state, and maybe then you can make contact with something which transcends being, and maybe that's God. And so we experience time in Heidegger's view. Remember, there are two aspects of his book, being and time. So we experience time not in a scientific way, 1.04 seconds from this state to this state, and then 2.5 seconds from this to the next, but as a horizon of possibility. Conscious human being projects itself into the future. We make plans, and time forces us to confront being. But how we respond is entirely up to us. The human condition is always one of lack. We are not what we could be. We are not what we ought to be. We always fall short of the glory of being. And we also experience time psychologically, what Chris Langan terms in physics metatimes, or metaphysics, and he terms metatime. Potentials distributing programming to the present, forcing us to confront being and time, forcing us to make a decision. And we experience past, present, and future, and alternate between these modes through memory, planning, and experience. And it all happens instantaneously. It all occurs in one meta-object, which we experience as Dasein, as human existence, as our conscious experience. And this is the point which Greg Wilford made in his series about the CTMU and Heidegger, and how the CTMU completes Heidegger's mission. That time in Heidegger's conception is also the syntax of the language of the CTMU at the psychological level. It's that which forces us to confront being, which then maps to the metaphysical level, where time is generative and personal fundamentally, where theories are generalized to mental constructs and perception, or even perhaps Dasein in a real sense is generalized to the act of self-generation and externalization to perception. The psychological reality Heidegger describes is then mapped to a metaphysical reality. Perhaps the synthesis then of being processing time is maybe a fundamentally personal reality by virtue of this mapping, that there's an intrinsic, that being is not a thing to be confronted, but a person is a generalization of Dasein, with all of the veils, the Maya of human existence taken away. And so Langan generalizes Heidegger in this sense. So that's just a brief digression. And we also confront Dasein in the past. Guilt is the uncomfortable certainty that we are not what we could have been. We responded to the conditions of Dasein, to human existence, improperly, and this manifests itself as a psychological reality in the present moment. If we're not authentic to our true selves and focus on lowercase b beings instead of living out your purpose and meaning, John Wheeler says, the universe gives rise to consciousness, and consciousness gives meaning to the universe. Responding to the tragic conditions of life in a fruitful and productive manner, then all of our life, if we don't do this, then all our lives is the slow march of time towards death, a sexually transmitted disease with a 100% death rate, I've heard. So if we do this correctly, if we confront being in our own individual lives and make contact with the transcendent, then with something more profound, and perhaps we could kindle a meaning of life in the darkness of mere being, and the darkness of mere human being, and the darkness of Dasein. So let that light shine forth in the darkness. May the peace of our Father in heaven be upon you. If I can subscribe. Peace.